Step one is working on yourself. Now it sounds a little counterintuitive. What, relationships? What about the other person? It all starts with you. Why? Because you are in a relationship with yourself. That's the most important relationship in your life. It all starts there. Don't just jump to the other like, okay, Julien, tell me about relationships, the other person. What about? No, let's talk about you. What's it like to date you? We never think about this, right? We're like, no, the most important is the relationship with my mom and family. No, it's you. You're stuck with you the rest of your life. And guess what? That relationship is going to dictate every other relationship. Whether it's romantic, friendship, you name it, the relationship with yourself dictates the relationship you have with the world. And it's important to do this audit. How do you like hanging out with yourself? For most people, it's horrible. You want to do the test? Go home after this event, before going to bed. Don't turn on the music, don't turn on the TV, don't look at your phone, and just sit with yourself in silence 10 minutes. You can even look at yourself in the mirror for 10 minutes and see what happens. It's probably not going to be very pleasant. The first thing most people do when they get home is they immediately turn on the television. Like distraction, music, cooking, I got to be doing something, can't be with myself. If you're quiet with yourself, that little voice starts seeping in. Especially if you look at yourself in the mirror. You're sitting there looking at yourself in the mirror. Put on a little weight, didn't we? Where did that come from? Oh, getting old. Not that attractive, are you? Hey, remember that horrible experience when you were in high school? Oh, it's really like this horrible friend. Like, hey, remember this horrible thing? Remember that person who judged you? Remember that thing you did, that mistake you made? Oh, it's this horrible, and this self-attack. You should be taking more action. You're quite lazy. You're procrastinating too much. You're not good looking. You're a disappointment. You disappointed your parents. You should do better. You should be doing more. You should be more social. You should be more successful. You should be smarter. It's this very toxic relationship we have. Now, what do? We'd rather ignore that and then try to compensate by, filling our lives with other people. Like maybe that relationship will fill it. No, you got to start with you. What's it like to date you? Are you kind to yourself? Are you rude to yourself? Do you get in fights with yourself? Is there a lot of drama with yourself? What's that inner voice like? Do you ever do things that are loving towards yourself? Acts of kindness towards yourself? What's it like to date you? You must work on yourself. Until you develop a healthy relationship with you, you will not be able to do so with others. Okay, you must fill your own cup, and you must reach a point where you feel complete. And this goes against mainstream advice, which is, as you were previously asking, find someone who completes you. You know what, people? There is such a thing as a soulmate, and there's one out there for you. When you were born, you were a star, and that star got split in two. And you arrived here, and your other half is somewhere out there in the world. And the most beautiful thing in the world, true love, is when you find the other half of that star, and you're finally reunited, and the relationship is beaming with light and love and wonder. And you're like, my soulmate. But then there's also the worries. What if my soulmate's in another country? How will I find my soulmates with all the people in the world? Right? How will I ever live just being a half? How will I ever be whole? What if I settle for the wrong person and never find my soulmate? Screw that. Okay? There is no other person who will ever complete you. Screw this you complete me mentality. Complete yourself. Don't attach your self-worth to someone else. It's no different than attaching your self-worth to money. Looking for someone to complete you is like someone thinking, you know what, when I make millions, I'll finally be good enough. Or approval. When I have all these people approving of me, I'll finally be good enough. It's no different. What is love? It's when two complete people come together and there's a certain synergy that happens. Not two halves that come together. If it's two halves, you will not experience love, you will experience attachment. You will experience craving, you will experience need. And this is what most of society confuses with love. Most people have never experienced love, they only experience need. Obsession, desperation. As soon as they're away from their partner, they're replaying like, oh, my partner, I need my partner. Oh, how do I get my partner attracted? Oh, I talk to my partner, like this compulsive need. It's like they're drug. And guess what? If that is what your relationship is built on, it will by default be filled with manipulation. Manipulation, bribes, trying to get the other person to do what you want. Why? Because you don't want to lose that person. If you found your half and you're finally complete, do you want to lose half of you? No. And it won't even be consciously, but unconsciously, you're going to try to find ways to keep that person there. And they're going to do the same. It won't be love, it'll be manipulation and attachment. That's what a relationship is when you come at it from a place of being incomplete, when you come at it from a place of desperation. And we're conditioned by this too. We see it in the movies, in TV shows. It's all this attachment and craving, but that is toxic. Let it sink in. Attachment is toxic. Attaching your self-worth to another person is toxic. And vice versa. You are complete. And you can even sink into this perspective. Can you be okay with never being in a relationship the rest of your life? See what comes up. I'm not saying don't get into a relationship. Life is all about relationships. But what comes up sinking into that perspective? What if you never find anyone? What if you're alone the rest of your life? Can that be good enough? Can you be okay with that? If the answer is no, whatever comes up, that is something you must let go of. Those are things that are driven by, I am incomplete, I am not good enough, just me. I need someone else. You've placed another person as a requirement to you being whole, to you loving yourself. I can only love myself fully if I'm in a relationship. No. Become whole first. Okay? Beyond that, if you don't work on yourself, realize that you have a certain polarity. And a great book, I would say a necessary book to read when it comes to relationships, is The Human Magnet Syndrome. I stumbled on that one. The Human Magnet Syndrome by Ross Rosenberg. Read that book. That is a must. Absolute must. And he talks about, which I'm sure you've heard about before, the narcissist and codependent dynamic. And it's like a magnet. And we tend to be attracted to someone who is the polar opposite. If you're very codependent, you're going to keep attracting people who are very narcissistic. And that is the basis of a dysfunctional relationship. And until you work on yourself and release that charge, and if you think of a scale like this, okay, extremely codependent, you're going to attract extremely narcissistic people, and it's going to be toxic relationships. I'm sure you've heard it before. Why do I keep falling for these people in these toxic relationships? Why don't I fall for the people who are better for me? You won't even experience attraction for the people who would form a healthy relationship with you. And as you work on yourself, you'll get closer to the center and you'll attract people who are closer to the center. Read that book. It'll blow your mind. It'll explain so much. You're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. It'll be quite terrifying, by the way. And the fact that most of society isn't taught this whole dynamic, narcissist codependence, is insane. And until you work on yourself, again, it'll be the same patterns. Until you examine the core beliefs you have around love and relationships, you will attract the same circumstances. We've talked about it a bit before. If you grow up and you look at your parents and say they fight a lot, you're a kid, you're forming your bearings. You're like, what's life? Okay, what's love? What's a relationship? Closest to you with a lot of authority are your parents. Say they fight a lot. You're a kid, you don't know any better. You're not going to judge this as good or bad. You're just going to say, oh, that's love, fighting. That's a relationship, fighting. Okay. Stored, and then you form new beliefs on that. You never go back to analyze it. You just form new beliefs. Here you are in your adult life, consciously, I want a healthy relationship, you know? Fighting's not too good, right? I want a chill, just very healthy relationship. But for some reason, you keep falling for people where there's a lot of drama, a lot of fighting, right? The same patterns again and again and again. Consciously, why does this keep happening to me? Subconsciously, you're staying congruent to that core belief. This is what love is. On a deeper level, we do this with everything, by the way, just a way of being. For me, for the longest time, I was just always very stressed, very tense, always, you know? And I was like, even when things were going well, I was like, okay, like just kind of like tense stress. And going back to my childhood, that's how my dad was. And as a kid, I didn't judge it as good or bad. I'm like, oh, that's how you should be. That's how you should live. That's how you should exist. Again, we just take it in. And we never go back to examine what we took in and what we believe. If your parents, again, were divorced, you might fall for people who are in long distance. Long distance relationships, people who are already in a relationship and you're on the side, people who cheat on you. If your parents' relationship was very flat, it might be the same thing. It might be relationships where you're more like friends and it lacks that spark. But it's very important to examine this. What relationship do my parents have? What about friends of the family that I saw? What are some of the beliefs? If I write down relationships equal ... what comes up? You might even have different labels. Relationships equals settling down. There's a big one. And then you're going to keep pushing it away or self-sabotaging because you don't want to settle down. Relationships equal loss of freedom, trapped, fighting, betrayal. If you don't work on that and there's that lack of trust, that's not a relationship. If you don't trust your partner, you're not in a relationship. That's something to dive into as well. A lot of people have it. I have many clients that I coach who have this worry. My partner's going to cheat. My partner's going to cheat. And it goes to levels that are insane. To the point where there was one client that comes to mind right now. He was dating this girl in another country, and he had massive trust issues. And it goes back to trauma he experienced as a child. And he's always afraid of being betrayed, and the betrayal goes down to being disrespected. So the fear of being disrespected. And he would rather, for example, his partner say, hey, listen, I'm cheating on you, and find out, like it would hurt, but the worst thing for him was his partner cheating on him and them kind of laughing at him behind his back. Like, oh, he doesn't even know that we're cheating, and that lack of being disrespected. And that would run him. He would not be able to help it. He'd be there and he's like, well, I got to text her, she sent me this on Facebook, and I'm looking at her Facebook every day to make sure she is where she said she is. She's out with these friends, and he's looking up literally the profile of her friends, asking her all about it, to the point where, and we're working on this, and he was finally able to let go of it, but it reached a point where he was telling me, I left a box of condoms at her place. I'm like, okay, and he's like, this will be the test to know if she cheated. Because if I go there and I see there's a condom missing, I know she cheated. I'm like, okay. And I also know that if she say, used a condom and then replaced it, or used all of them and replaced it, I wrote down the serial number of the condoms, so I will know if they are the same ones or not. Right? Now, this sounds crazy, but it's actually very common. People are like that. I'm sure you have many friends that might be you, or you might have dated someone like that. They're just super obsessed. They have to know every little detail. There's that lack of trust. That is something to dive into and work on. Until you do, you can go for a new partner, and hope this time it'll be different. You're going to keep repeating the same patterns. It'll just be different faces. And it also comes down to diving into past trauma you might have experienced. Okay? So lack of trust, the fear of being vulnerable, letting someone truly see you. A lot of us have that. A lot of us try to form relationships built on a certain front. No, be authentic from the start. Put your true self out there and let go of any kind of resistance to being seen. Most people have experienced trauma growing up where they put themselves out there and they were hurt. They were betrayed. And what did it tell them? You know what? The world is a scary place. People are scary. People are evil. Whenever I'm real, whenever I let someone in, I'm going to be hurt. So I'm just not going to let anyone in. And even when it comes to socializing and social skills, what a lot of people do when they start out, and that's what I did when I started out, is you tweak the front. You work on the front. You have this front, you have this armor, and you work on it and you try to perfect it. I remember when I first started going out interacting with people, I had a certain outfit that I would wear. No joke. I would wear the same pants, the same shirt, I'd do my hair the same way, and it was my going out uniform, my superhero costume of socializing. And if I wasn't wearing that, and my clothes weren't perfectly ironed, I would feel extremely insecure. To the point where even if I met someone and it went extremely well looking that way, if I saw them again and I wasn't dressed the same way, up to par, I'd be like, oh my God, they're going to see the real me. And I'd just keep crafting this front. I look this way, I'm going to say this, I'm going to act like this. They're going to see this part of my personality, but they can't see all that is me. A perspective to dive into here is imagine you meet that perfect partner. Sink into it. Say you meet that partner and it's on a day where you feel great, you look great. Let's go a little deeper. Say it goes well, and suddenly that partner wants to meet your friends. What comes up then? A lot of us are like, oh no, if she sees my friends, she'll see I'm a loser because my friends are losers. Oh, he'll see this about me. Oh, he'll see my friends are crazy. He's going to think I'm crazy. We freak out. Now, even going back to self-sabotage, this will push things away. We're like, why do I keep self-sabotaging? Why don't I let things go past a certain point? Because you fear that'll happen. Oh, what if she sees where I live? What if she finds that out? Ooh, what if she sees what I'm into? She sees my room, she sees my place. What if she meets my family? What if she sees what I do on a day-to-day basis? What if she finds out all these things? I used to think that. That'll freak me out, that fear of opening up. What if she sees that I'm not as on point verbally as when she first met me? Anyone can be really confident for 30 seconds, for a minute, for 5 minutes. After a period of time, eventually that front has to fade away and the true you starts shining through. And then we freak out. Put yourself out there, the real you from the start. Dive into the trauma or resistance around it or the fear of being seen, and also realize that if you put on a front, you won't attract someone who likes you for you, and a relationship will not be what it is meant to be, but it'll be this prison of paranoia. A relationship should be your personal sanctuary where you can feel completely at ease being you. It shouldn't be this, oh, will she see past the front? Will he see past the front? Oh, am I cool enough today? How can I keep my partner attracted? Questions like that, it's insane. The fact that you're worried, it's like there's that worry, what if my partner doesn't like me today? What if I'm not cool enough for my partner? That's not a relationship. That's a prison. Your partner should be the person who can truly see you, all that is you. And you feel okay with that. You at your best and you at your worst. Here's another perspective. Say you go out tonight and you have a couple drinks. You're like, you know what, or somehow you have a couple drinks or you eat a lot of unhealthy food and you wake up tomorrow and you just don't look good. You look a little bloated, there's some inflammation, you stink, and say your place is a mess. And that ideal partner walks in. Would you feel comfortable? Would you be like, oh, don't look at me now? If it's the don't look at me now, then there's not you being you. Then there's still a certain front you're trying to maintain. Now, let's get a little subtle here. This doesn't mean do that from the start. There's also social intelligence. You know, be like, hey, I'm out stinking, like, take it or leave it. No. The same with unloading your baggage. Don't do that right off the meat. There's a time and place, but there shouldn't be any resistance around that. There should be nothing that you hide from your partner for it to be a relationship. Some other things to work on yourself is that fear of rejection. This comes from past trauma where, I'm sure you've experienced this. People who are bipolar have this. It's that whole like fear of abandonment, and to cope with this, I will abandon you before you abandon me. And whenever there's a certain bit of a threat, they'll reject the other person to avoid being rejected, and they keep pushing partners away. You know, or when things start going well, going back to that core belief around relationships and love, if you believe, okay, love is, you know, drama, things going well, you will think your relationship is failing and you will proactively create drama to keep it alive. Okay, so working on yourself, key, that is step one. Beyond that, in terms of choosing a partner, it doesn't matter where you meet. I want to make it clear. It doesn't matter where you meet your partner. Why? Because people go everywhere. You know, people are like, oh, I could never meet someone who's out in a bar. Every human has been to a bar. Right? Oh, what if I met the person in that part of the neighborhood? Hey, people walk around. Don't judge where you meet. Be open at all times. Okay? If you haven't had many relationships or even interactions with people, jump in and let go of what you think would be a good partner for you. This is very important. Okay? We're like, oh, you know what? A great partner would be this type of person who looks like this, who's into this, etc., etc., etc. However, because you have no experience getting into that relationship, you might realize, you know what? I don't like this. I thought I would, but now that I'm in it, experiencing it, I don't like it. So try a bunch and be very open. You know, think of it as trying different ice cream flavors. You know, comparing people to ice cream. Say you've never had ice cream before. You're like, you know what? I think that the best flavor is banana. How do you know? You never tried it. Maybe you won't like it. Oh, but I saw it in all the commercials and everyone says banana's the best. But maybe you won't like it. So try everything. Jump in and try everything. And what you'll notice is, oh, you know what? I like this. This I don't like so much. This I like. This is the foundation, by the way, of a very healthy relationship. Most people just jump in for the first flavor they have. They have a very limited, selection. Why? Because they're limited to their social circle or their work. That's where they find their partners. They don't know how to go out and interact with new people. So it's like, okay, you just got the old moldy chocolate ice cream and the little bit of vanilla ice cream left. Which one do you want? If you're like, I guess the molds, I don't know, a bit of vanilla. And then they complain, they're like, my relationship's toxic. Yeah, no wonder. You went for the wrong flavor. So go out, interact with a lot of flavors, and then you discover what you actually like while working on yourself. Now, when looking for a partner as well, don't look for a finished product. We're like, I want my partner to do this, think this. Your ideal partner, look for the raw material, but they will become that ideal partner by being in a relationship with you. You both grow together into that. And what we do is we're like, oh, I need the perfect one from the start, and then you block off all these amazing opportunities. Don't. Look for the raw material. Look for that potential, that seed of someone who, with you, growing together, being in a relationship together, can become that ideal partner. Okay? Find what you like, not what your friends like, not what society likes. This is another reason people are very unhappy in relationships, is they go for the partner that would impress their friends, as opposed to what they truly resonate with and like. Oh, I'm not really attracted to that, but my friends will think that person's cool. I'm going to go for that. No, do you. Screw your friends, you're in it for you. And see beyond the front. See that person for who they truly are. Don't base your relationship on superficial things. Is attractiveness important in a relationship? Of course, but it's not just that. Because guess what? No matter how physically attractive someone is, after a certain period of time, you're left with the person. It doesn't do the same. You're used to it. You're left with who they actually are as a person, no matter how attractive they are, by the way. At first, you're like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm sure you've experienced it. After a week, you're like, a little less than when I first met. A month, a little less. And eventually you're left with who they actually are. Learn to see who they actually are from the start. See past the front. Find someone, ideally, who is also moving up and health conscious. A lot of people that I dated many years ago, they look like wrecks right now. Why? Because at the time, they might have looked great, but say you meet someone out and they're smoking, drinking champagne, and that's their diet. 5-10 years down the road, they're not going to look the same. And even in terms of self-esteem, look for someone who's moving up. Right now you're in this work, this transformational work. You're going to resonate with someone who's at your current level self-esteem-wise. If you keep working on yourself and growing, and your partner isn't, eventually there's going to be a certain gap. And the relationship will break. So you need to find someone who's moving up with you. Okay? Look for that. Otherwise, and this is a big thing with self-help, it's like they find someone, they grow, they break. Find someone, they grow, they break. So on and so forth. Or they find someone who's actually moving down instead of stagnating as you move up. Find someone who's on the up and up. Find someone where you have shared interests with them. This can be a great list. Write down the things that you find attractive about your partner, about that person. And this could be like, the looks, the sex, the passion, the smell, whatever. Like all the things that turn you on sexually. Sexual attractiveness. Then make another list. All the things you like in your partner as a friend. Shared values, shared interest, so on and so forth. If you took away the attractiveness, what makes you stay with this person? Make that list. And then as a third list, what are you willing to sacrifice for that relationship? Write that down. All relationships come with a certain amount of sacrifice. You also get more, but everything's in exchange. That's more on the commitment side. But those lists are key. Most of us are just the surface level, attractiveness, okay. No, go way deeper. Learn to be best friends with your partner. If you're not best friends with your partner, that is not a healthy relationship. You have to love hanging out with them, spending time with them. For a lot of people, it's like, well, I like having sex with them, but apart from that, meh. That can be cool, is a certain type of relationship, but for a long-term, serious, committed relationship, you must be best friends with them. Okay? And building on that, set the frame from the start. Manage expectations from the start. If you're someone who's like, you know what? All I want is sex, let the person know from the start. If you're someone who's like, you know what? I just want to see you a little bit and just have sex a little bit, let them know from the start. If you're like, you know what? I want a committed relationship, let them know from the start. Whatever you're into, let them know from the start. This is the crazy thing too. We're also afraid of letting people know what our intentions are, but no matter what they are, just as we talked about, no matter who you are, there's someone who will accept you for you. No matter what you're into, someone will be okay with that. If you're someone who's like, look, I'm really business focused right now, I have very little time for you. Very little time. And you let the person know and you're real about it, well, some people will be like, that's not for me. Of course. But those are not the people you're meant to be with. Find the people who's like, you know what? Perfect. That's what I want. Just someone who gives me a little time because I'm busy too. There's that person out there where it's a win-win. What we do is we try to chase all these people we're not meant to be with, where it's this win-lose. If you're like, this is what I want, and then you lie and like, actually I want this, and like you find that person who's okay with that, it's like you're compromising who you are and then they're compromising who they are. It's like, be upfront and find the person who's like, cool, me too. And if you haven't found a person who's cool with it yet, it's because you're not meeting enough new people. There are people out there, no matter who you are, what you're into, let them know in a calibrated way, and you'll find someone who's okay with it. And then as things change, as you grow, get on the same page, do checkups, see where each other are at. Don't let resentment build in the relationship. That is the worst, when things go unsaid. Little things that are nothing, and then they start building over time, and resentment builds. That's what poisons relationships. Make sure you each have a purpose. You each have your own lives outside of the relationship. You should have your purpose, your partner should have a purpose. Don't make your partner adapt to your purpose. Resentment will build in. They need their own thing going. Don't do everything together 24/7 either. Spend time together, be best friends, but also be okay with spending time apart. You should have your own things, they should have their own things, or resentment will kick in. Resentment is the killer of relationships. It builds very subtly. And you start noticing it. You're like, I don't know if something changed in your partner. You might even lose attractiveness. A big pattern, by the way, in long-term relationships is the couples just slowly, gradually stop having sex. Super common. To the point where I've had a few clients like this. They're in relationships and they haven't had sex in like months or over a year. And they're still in their relationship. Okay? And then it's to the point where they haven't had sex in so long and they know they should, but it's just so awkward to jump in now because the pattern's set. And there's not that same chemistry or fire anymore. To the point where even if like, okay, we should have sex now, it's like, do I want to? I'd rather sleep. And they just don't do it. Be very careful of that. Another crucial book for relationships, Crucial Conversations. Learn how to fight and argue in a constructive way. Because there are going to be times where you're going to butt heads. And that's where, like, again, people get like, they yell, so on and so forth, or people will explode or people will shut down. You might have different reactions to conflict. Like you might just shelter yourself and not say anything. But then what happens, you let it build up inside and resentment kicks in, right? So you have to sit down and learn and talk to your partner about how you're going to argue. How are you going to have these difficult conversations? And also in terms of personal growth, in terms of triggering yourself, working on yourself, a relationship is actually amazing for that. You can trigger yourself, going out in different situations, doing that type of work, but being with a person for an extended period of time will bring up things that you could say are close to impossible to bring up on your own. Now, in terms of a relationship, you hear this, like, is it for me? It depends. Don't come at a relationship from a place of trying to complete yourself. If you feel inspired for it, great. Is it better than not being in a relationship? It's different. The way I view it is width of experience and depth of experience. Have both. What is width? Going out, meeting new people, different adventures, and that is amazing. But guess what? After a certain period of time, your return of those experiences will be a little less. You're like, okay, what's another crazy night out? Oh. And then what becomes more exciting? The depth of experience. Experience you can have with someone with whom you might spend, a few years with, a couple years with. Where you're really with that person. Those unique experiences you can't have with someone you just met or someone you just know on a surface. I really resonate with some of the things Carl Jung says, or Jordan Peterson, if you watch his stuff on marriage, where it places, what they say, and it's true, it places a boundary on the relationship. you know? People are always like, well, what about divorce? Divorce is so horrible. I think that's awesome. Divorce should not be horrible, right? That's what adds the skin in the game. The biggest change I've noticed, again, I've been with this, oh, actually one more thing. Adversity is key for a relationship. Going through hard times. If your relationship has been peachy the entire way through, you don't know what your relationship is yet or who your partner is yet. For me, going through, for example, that scandal I was in years ago, it was funny at the time, people were like, this guy, I was like, he might get girls, but he's not in a relationship. I'm like, I am in a relationship. So she stuck with me through that and lost many friends, got much hate. It was really bad. And that actually is what strengthened our bond. It's like, I'm sure you've heard of congruence testing, right? When you meet someone new, you're not just going to take everything they are at face value. You're going to want to test them. How do they act under pressure? How do they act when I say this, when I do this? How do they act when they meet my friends in this situation, right? It's not a mean testing. It's just seeing to make sure, okay, who is this person as you discover them? Do that with your relationship. Okay, here we are in the beginning. How is it after a period of time? How is it then? Going through tough times together, that's just a new environment to see who this person is, how they react under those tough times. Will they stick with you? What comes up? Will they get triggered? Will they leave? There's that saying, tough times will show you who your true friends are or not. Same with a relationship. So adversity strengthens the relationship. Don't shy away from it. It is necessary. But that's what marriage does. For me, it's like this boundary where instead of now just being two people in a relationship, and when things get tough, you can just be like, oh, you know what, we're done. Like anyone who's in a regular relationship, that's, okay, peace, you know, we break up, bye, we're done. Just like that. With marriage, it adds an extra step. You can't just be like, okay, we're done. Okay, we're done. We got to contact the lawyers now and go through all this, and it's going to be a fucking mess, and it's going to be horrible, and it's going to drag on for months. Are you sure we're done, or do we maybe want to try to see if we can find a solution to this? And that's what it does. It makes you more solution-oriented. Now you're this unit. It's like you together, you're stuck with that person. Let's find a solution. Now with marriage too, it's not something that will, like, I would say, take your, it's not a reward, it's a reward, it's not a solution. So what does that mean? People are in a relationship and when things start getting boring, they're like, oh, next step is get married. That'll spice things up. No. Get married, and this is my personal view, after a long period of time. Don't just jump into marriage. Get married once, again, you really know who that person is. I used to joke, if you're locked with that partner in a box and you spend 5 years together and you're just stuck together, there's nothing to do, just you hanging out with that partner. And after 5 years, if you're let out of that box, you still want to be together, get married. That's the true test. Get married when you know it's like, that's it. And then it just places that boundary. And the fact that a divorce is so horrible is great because now there's the incentive. And now it's solution focused. Because it's horrible, again, even in society, it's like, it's horrible for the man. Yeah, but it's horrible for the woman too. It ruins people. For a man, you might think, okay, there's more examples financially where they get ruined. But have you seen women who get divorced? They are emotionally for life. No one gets out of that, rarely, in a good way. Right? So I think that's good. There's your incentive. We're stuck together, or there's that. And it shifts everything. It's crazy how your mind goes to like solution versus just complaining or like, there's always the option of leaving. When there's not the option of leaving, things change drastically and it really deepens the relationship. So those are a few points with relationships.